Hello and welcome to the next episode of my Sound Design Here Create series. This is Project 4, Pines Fog, Episode 3, Trees and Fog. So first, what is Sound Design Here Create? Sound Design Here Create is a sound design series where we undertake a set of projects motivated by prompts. The prompts are made of a piece of media, in this case an image and a video of a forest, and a piece of text. In this case, here is a forest. Create music inspired by the fog. Another thing of note, 2 artists, 1 prompt. I am doing a collaboration on this project with YouTuber Odo Zendaidokai. We will be doing our own sound design and then we will be reacting to what we each did and we will be hopefully learning something from one another. So far, I put a few ideas together. I took some samples and I made various sound elements. Today we're going to be doing some synthesized sound elements. So let's have a quick look at the video. So the video here, I made a sound corresponding to the ground or the moss. I made a sound corresponding to the person filming the scene, walking through the scene. I made a sound corresponding to the leaves at the very top. So what I'm going to be filling in today is the most important sound, which is the fog, and the second most important sound, perhaps, the trees. So firstly, I'd like to show you what I did since last episode. When I listened back, I decided a couple of elements weren't really pitched enough. So one thing that I did was for this moss pad, I tuned the filter and I turned the resonance up. So this is the bass element. This is now more pitched so you can hear the movement because this is meant to be musical. Secondly, for the leaves element, I'd only had this maybe granular sample effect in. What I've done is added a very simple triangle wave sound to layer with that. So just to make it a little bit more tonal, let me briefly play this. So obviously this is quite loud at the moment, but that doesn't worry me because next episode I'm going to come back and I'm going to try and rebalance the sounds. So this is what I did before. So what am I doing today? Well, today I have got 2 devices in front of me. One of them is the Create Audio collaboration with Pittsburgh Modular West Pest, and the other is the Arturia Keystep. This is what I'm going to be using for creating these sounds. The first sound is going to be the sound of the trees, and I figured I'm looking for a plucky sound, and a West Coast synth seems like a good match for that. So let's get straight to it. So let's listen to the default sound. Let me quickly talk through this synthesizer. We have an oscillator with several waveforms which can be combined in various ways. We have FM. The FM modulation source is an LFO. There is 1 LFO on this synthesizer. Importantly, we have a wave folder, and that wave folder has a fold mod, which also comes from the LFO or can come from other places using the patch bay. We have what they call a dynamics control, which is analogous to an LPG in response. That's a low-pass gate. But you have control over the release. So often with a low-pass gate, you're basically stuck with the release determined by the Vactrol and the capacitor, or there are a few specific settings. So that's something different. And release mod, again, from the LFO. We also have glide, there's a sequencer, there's an arpeggiator. So let's listen to the sound we get just straight out the gate. Nice pluck. I'm thinking it's a little bit short, so let's increase the release time. Okay, so I think that already sounds a bit better. I'm thinking the sound is a bit strong, so my thought is probably a sine wave or a triangle wave. So let's go through. This is sine. I probably like the sine best. See what happens when we fold it. traditional wave folders are most effective on triangle waves, but this wave folder and this oscillator were designed to work together, so you get meaningful folding in any case. So the other thing that I want to do here is I want to have some sort of timing synchronization, but I'm not actually going to bother MIDI clocking this. I'm just going to tap tempo it. So I'm going to solo this monitor in Bitwig, which you can't see, and I'm going to turn on the metronome and I'm going to try and tap tempo. I'll end up stretching the time at the end, but it doesn't particularly matter. Okay, so I don't know if that's going to be an appropriate rate, but let's assume it will be. So I'm going to turn on the sequencer and I'm going to switch the sequencer into arpeggiator mode. Hold is now enabled, and I already had an arpeggio that I used last time, which was C, E flat, G, B flat, C. So let's try it. So my inclination now is possibly I want this twice as fast. So I'm now going to listen to the metronome again and I'm going to double time tap it. So let me stop the sequencer and let me do that tap tempo again. Okay, so that should be a little bit better. Let's re-enable it. So the only thing I think I really need here, by the way, this resonance refers to the resonance of the filter that forms part of the dynamics controller. So let me turn this up. So I think we want a little. And the other thing I'd probably like to do is this LFO. The LFO seems to be beat synchronized here. I think that works. So you can see as I turn it up and down, it's going through different multiples. So I've adjusted the LFO range to make it go at a quite different rate. You can see this light indicating. So now it's going much slower. So now I'll turn on a tiny bit of FM. So this I haven't actually tuned either, so this is not exactly in tune. I think that works fine. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to record this audio of the appropriate amount of time to go alongside the rest in Bitwig. So let's bring Bitwig back up. And once that's recorded, I'm going to try and hit play just on the beat here. Should have probably hit record there. Let's hit record enable. So I'm going to have to shift this, but given that this is random, it doesn't particularly matter. Kind of boring to watch this scroll by. So while this is recording, I guess I can reveal what I will be doing the rest of my sound design in. I'm going to disable monitoring, so hopefully you can't hear that anymore, but it's still recording in the background. My sound design is going to be done in Pigments. This is Pigments 4. You may know that I am a Linux user, and you may be wondering, well, why exactly am I using Pigments? Pigments is Windows software. Firstly, I'm not opposed to paying for software. I like Linux for the control it affords me in various ways, but I understand that that comes as something as a cost, at a cost of access to various software. One of the ways we can bridge that gap is with something called Wine. Wine is a compatibility layer for the Windows API and Windows kernel, which allows you to run various Windows software in Linux. It not only lets you run Windows software, but it also lets you potentially use VSTs. Now this I actually haven't set up as a VST, but I have it running and I have it connected up to Bitwig. So what I shall do is drag the audio that I just created to another track and enable monitoring, and we now should be able to hear Pigments. Okay, so that is Pigments coming through, and I will be able to record that into Bitwig. So hopefully this is all going to sit together nicely for us. This is going to be the bulk of the sound design today. Hopefully it's going to be interesting. So firstly, I think I would like to use a wavetable. Let me quickly talk through Pigments. So Pigments has 4 audio engines available in each of its 2 engine slots. This is analog, which is like a VA, virtual analog type of thing. We have wavetable, which is wavetable. We have sample, which is a sample and granular engine. And we have harmonics, which generates harmonics in a sort of additive style. We additionally have a thing called the utility engine, which includes things like noise. Conveniently, the noise is not just noise, but it contains a number of other sources like nature sounds. So overall, I'd say it's quite powerful, and generally it sounds pretty good. I've been quite impressed with it, so I'm quite pleased that I decided to jump on board and buy it. It cost $69 because I had some other Arturia software hardware already, and I thought that was well worthwhile. So firstly, I'm going to make a layer that is analog. This is going to be the pitched core of the sound, and then I'm going to use the other 2 sections to add texture to give us that foggy sound. So let's imagine that I just want triangle waves for now. And imagine I want to layer them somehow. So let's say this one can be on pitch, this one can be up a fifth, so that's 7 semitones. This one can be down an octave. And let's bring up the 5th. Fairly simple. Next thing of note here is we have an additional noise source. This can go from pink noise to white noise through blue noise, and I think some noise would be useful, and I'm imagining something around the pink area of the spectrum will be good. Let's just turn some up. Sounding okay. Next, we have the ability to route the output to either, there are 2 filters here, filter 1, filter 2, all to filter 1, all to filter 2, or anywhere in between. So we're cross-mixing how much of this signal goes to those 2 filters. We can also have the filters run completely in series or completely in parallel, and we can have them the inputs summed so they both receive the same thing. I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the multi-mode filter, and I'm going to have 2 filters. I'm going to do a shallow high-pass filter, that's 6 decibels per octave, and a shallow low-pass filter. So let's play. We don't hear very much at the moment because the high-pass filter is taking away most of the audio. Now the high pass filter. I'm going to go up high. So you see, as I turn on keyboard tracking higher, we get more high frequency coming through here. So firstly, what I'm probably going to do is turn the cutoff down a bit and turn the keyboard tracking down a bit. Go to the center octave. That works. So now let's listen. Turn this one up. Let's go low. Sounding okay? So this is rather basic for now, but I think this is suitable for what we're looking for. Maybe I'll add a little bit of detune to these two oscillators. Maybe I'll bring that down. So around half a semitone down there. Maybe, sorry, not half a semitone, a 20th of a semitone down, and maybe similar here. Let's try adjusting. So I think the one in the bass can maybe have a bit more of this, a little bit here. So this is a pulse width, but it's actually sort of squeezing the wave, it's distorting it. Sounding okay to me. So now I'm going to move on to making the overall envelope for this sound. So this is going to be a pad-like sound. I'm probably going to add quite a lot of reverb at the end in the next episode. So for now, let's just see. 20 seconds is a bit long. Six seconds feels okay. I'll see if it makes sense to match the decay and release. I think I'd like maybe a shorter release than decay. So the decay can probably be about as long, or maybe even longer than the attack, because I think that's a more important phase. I'm going to make this short temporarily, just so we jump to the end of it and I can adjust the sustain level. And then I can bring this back up to about 12 seconds, and this can be about 6. I think that's working fine. So let's add a little bit of amp velocity. So this is just velocity sensitivity. You get quite a lot of flexibility for setting up routings here. So say, for example, I wanted velocity to decrease attack. I could drag this down onto the attack. Currently, velocity positively affects it. I can turn it way down. So you see, fast press, slow press. I don't actually want this at the moment, so I'll just delete that, but hopefully that was a little instructive about how intuitive this UI can actually be. So I think I also want some filter movement, but I might add that after I add the next engine. So it's defaulted to sample, but I think I'm going to go wavetable here. And I had a look through, and I think I quite liked how the French horn sounded. So let's turn this first one off. Let's adjust the wavetable position. So I think what I would like to happen here is to start at this very buzzy end of this spectrum, maybe just a little in, so I can have a little LFO waver going on here. And then I'd like it to proceed all the way to the other end of that. And it probably should happen in about the same amount of time as the sum of the attack and the decay phases here. So let's link the decay and release, and the attack and decay phase, I can set attack to 0. The attack and decay adds up to about 18 seconds. So I've set up envelope 2 corresponding to this motion. And what I'm going to do, since this starts as a high value, I'm going to set the position to just before the end. I'm going to bring this modulation in and I'm going to modulate it negatively. So you can see how the wave gets selected from the beginning and it's making its way through. The other thing that I mentioned is I wanted some LFO motion going onto the wavetable that looks a little bit big to me. And let's now look at the LFO. At the moment, I think it's far too fast and I probably want it free running. So it's not super obvious, but you may notice that the speed at which that is scanning through the wavetable is changing. That's because this free running LFO is modulating it. I think another motion that I might like to hear here, listen to that again. I'm going to bring in both parts. So I think it blends a bit better if it's an octave down. Sounding nice. I might experiment with wave folding on the wavetable. So I'm going to turn off the analog again. So what I had in the other part is I have it becoming less timbrally complex. Wave folding increases timbral complexity. So I may have a corresponding modulation that increases the wave folding. I probably want this to be quite subtle. Let's just listen. So that's actually doing the opposite of what I wanted because this is decreasing. So I'm going to increase this. I'm going to decrease this till it ends at 0. Fraction of detune to it. Sounding okay. So let's bring the analog back in. Let's try and balance the volumes. So finally, this utility engine, I'm going to turn on some noise. So at the moment, this is just white noise. Just notice this is a bit quiet. I turned up the master level a little bit. Hopefully that'll be slightly more audible to you. Not 100% obvious from in here, but anyway. Let's have a look, and I listened to a few of these nature sounds, and this leaves one was quite interesting. So let's turn off the other sounds for now. So this is having it pitch tracking. That is pretty interesting, isn't it? But I think it's a bit too strong. I'm going to have it detuned down around about 1 octave. It's a very nice sound, I think. So what I think I might do then is use this second envelope. Maybe I'll add a third envelope here. So we have this envelope which lasts about 18 seconds. Let's have that one close to linear. And then let's make this one last 20 seconds. We're going to use that link there. And let's have this one be a little bit more of an exponential shape. So envelope 3, I'm going to assign to this filter control. Let's see what happens if I do it negatively. Okay, let's bring the other parts in again, and let's try and balance the volume between the layers. So another thing that I might do is I might use these two envelopes that we made to move the high pass and the low pass filter apart a little bit. So this is going to increase the bandwidth between them. So I'm going to turn the... Oh, I guess I'll add the modulation first. So let's use envelope 2 here. And let's turn that down. So let me think, that's going to be decreasing. So this cutoff is going to be up. So I actually want it to go the other way. And then I'm going to adjust the cutoff down so as it roughly hits that same point. So you can see this blue dot is shifting down here. So I'm now going to do the same with envelope 3. So envelope 3 is going to modulate cutoff here. And this one, we want it to get higher as we go. So again, this is backwards. Let's set that down a little. Let's increase this and I think the motion on this filter is a bit too aggressive, so let's shut that a little bit. Let's bring this up a little more. And maybe this detune is just too extreme. I'm going to take, let's take a fifth down, or maybe a fourth down. No, a fifth, why not? Let's go for it. Note that I only have 8 notes of polyphony turned on, so we don't necessarily get the full effect. I can increase that, but Pigments is quite CPU intensive, so I'm just being a little cautious with that. I'm going to add a fraction of drift, which should add a little bit more movement to that oscillator. I'm not using unison, so I'm just going to turn that off. Anything else I'd like to modulate? I think in practice I would like the macro control to do something here. And this will allow me to record some additional motion, which is not just controlled by an envelope. So I think the first thing I'd like to change the balance of the oscillators. I'd like to make everything more noisy. So with this turned all the way up, I'm going to drop it on volume. And I'm going to have the volume of the analog drop the most. I'm going to have the wavetable stay the same, and I'm going to have the volume of the utility engine go up a bit, and I'm also going to probably have the filter skew a little bit more in the high pass direction. So let me just try this out while it's playing. That's good. I think the bandwidth gets a bit high then, so what I'd like is that the macro control is going to close down, especially the high end. So I'm going to have the filter cutoff be negatively modulated by this macro control. And I'll have this very slightly positively modulated. So let's try it out. So it also sounds a little bit loud. So I think maybe I've got the levels not quite right here. So I'm going to go through and have a look at my modulations again. So this one, the analog, has the overall volume, noise volume. Let's have a look what I assigned this to. Engine 2 volume. That's there. And engine 1. So let's adjust that then. So engine 1 is there. Maybe I should also increase the noise color so it becomes a little bit brighter, and let's increase the noise level a bit. Let's see how that sounds. Let's try a little higher. Okay, and finally, I realize I'm running a little bit long here. I'm going to add some effects. Let's turn off effect B and the auxiliary, and stereo spread. We're not ping pong, and let's not have this. I think that works. And now it's probably good. So I'm just quickly putting some shape in for this reverb. Okay, so what I'm now going to do is I'm going to start this playing. Well, let me just listen quickly. Okay, overall that's working. I think that the tree sound is going to need some processing, so that's something for next episode. So I'm going to attempt to start this playing, to show the video, and to play some of my own quick chords for this fog sound, and then we'll be hearing something not final, but with all the parts in place. So hopefully that gives us a relatively complete look at what this sound is going to be like. I'm actually going to do a real recording of this sound from Pigments, and I'm going to automate the macro and turn that into audio. So next episode we will have all of the audio of all of the parts ready, and we will have the opportunity to finalize the mix and hopefully put a few automations in place, and that will end with what is essentially the final audio for the project. So I hope you've been enjoying sound design here Create. I hope you have been enjoying this project, but most importantly I'd like to say thank you very much for joining me here today, and goodbye.